Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at what is masculinism. Now, masculinism, or men's rights, like feminism, is a position with a range of different variations, some of which share some common features, while others support very different projects. In this video, we will cover several different categories of these views. As we did with feminism, we will cover three categories of views: philosophical masculinism, i.e. the propositions one might need to be philosophically committed to in order to consider oneself a masculinist; political masculinism, that adds some meat onto the bones of those propositions, provides a little more nuance and divides into individual separate views; and methodological masculinism, which serves as a bit of a foil to philosophical methodological feminism. This is a contentious topic, so I encourage you to watch the whole video all the way through before you comment, and in your comments, be specific about the position you are critiquing or advocating for, because you very well might agree with one of the positions here, but completely disagree with another. Now, previously we looked at philosophical feminism as the acceptance of two claims, a moral claim and an empirical claim. The moral claim being that men and women should be treated equally in the eyes of the law and society, and the empirical claim being that women are treated worse than men by the law and society. Philosophical masculinism, then, can be seen as the acceptance of the feminist's moral claim, i.e. that men and women should be treated equally, but the assertion of a different empirical claim, namely that men are treated worse than women by the law and society. Note that there is disagreement as to what exactly is meant by equal. By equal, do we mean that men and women should have different but equal opportunities in society? Or do we mean that they should have identical opportunities? Or the specific ways in which men are being treated worse by society? Are men treated worse across the board? Or are there some situations where men are treated better and others where women are treated better by the law or society? But the general premises are consistent across all of these views. Note that this variety of an interpretation means that being a masculinist is not necessarily exclusive of being a feminist, though it can be. This variety of possible interpretations also leads us to the political positions of masculinism, which provide more nuance to this debate and add more specificity as to what is meant both by equal and by being treated worse in society. Let's take a look. So, we'll look at three different political interpretations of this viewpoint: the progressive masculinist, the traditional masculinist, and the virilist masculinist. So first, the progressive masculinist. This position interprets the moral claim as arguing that men and women should have complete equality in society, completely equal opportunities, in the sense of these opportunities being the same and not defined by gender. It interprets the empirical claim to say that there are some situations where men are disadvantaged, perhaps military service, family court, job safety, criminal trials, etc. But it's open to the possibility that there are others where women are disadvantaged as well: equal wages, leadership opportunities, personal safety, etc. And many progressive masculinists might even argue that there are more situations where women are disadvantaged than men. You can note that a progressive masculinist could very easily also define themselves as a feminist, because they're saying that equality is important in the sense to which the feminist generally argues, and making the claim that both there are situations where men have disadvantages and there are other situations in which women have disadvantages. The traditional masculinist takes a different view. They argue that men and women should be equal, but their roles in society should be different. Both should have equal opportunities, but those opportunities should be specific to their gender. For the traditional masculinist, men are better suited to certain roles, fighting, physical labor, etc., while women are better suited to other roles, caregiving, nurturing, and so on. They are equal in the sense that they are both They both have jobs to contribute to society, but those specific jobs are defined by their gender. This means that the traditional masculinist interprets the empirical claim differently than the progressive masculinist did. Specifically, that the rise of feminism has allowed women to break out of their gender roles and take on things that don't fit those traditional gender roles, but it has not allowed men to do the same. Nor, for the traditional masculinist, should it. Women who are doctors are valorized, while men who are nurses are mocked. This means that men and women are no longer being treated equally in society because women do not have to fit into those gender roles, but men do. For the traditional masculinist, the way to solve this is to reassert traditional gender roles, placing women back into their roles to make things fair and equal for men. Finally, for the virilist masculinist, the question focuses less on the rights of individual men and women, but more on the prevalence of masculine or feminine values in society. For the virilist, the moral statement is about an equal balance of masculine and feminine traits in society, i.e., a balance of traits traditionally associated with masculinity and traits traditionally associated with femininity. And the empirical claim is that in our current society, that balance is shifted in favor of feminine values. We value compromise over decisiveness, collaboration over hierarchy, knowledge over strength, relationships over ability, compassion over rigor, etc. For the virilist, society has become too feminized and needs to become more masculine to achieve balance, or often, to hear the virilist tell it, various positive outcomes that could be gained from having that balance between masculine and feminine values. Before going into objections to those positions, we'll briefly touch on what I might call methodological masculinism, or a way of investigating philosophy based on masculine traits or principles. This is largely only framed in the context of being a foil to methodological feminism, which focuses on exploring the areas of philosophy which may have not gone explored previously by men. Methodological feminists argue that there are positions or concepts in philosophy that have been underexplored because most of the people doing philosophy throughout history have been men, so philosophical tradition may be historically, methodologically, masculine, rather. But that does not mean that such tradition is invalid or that much of it is not of interest to women as well, merely that it's incomplete. In this way, methodological masculinism might be seen as the whole standard tradition of philosophy, as compared to methodological feminism, which explores the components that mainstream philosophy may have missed. Or it might be imagined that those areas of philosophy that men would be particularly concerned with and women might not, and in a matriarchal world might have been ignored, might be considered masculinist, methodologically masculinist areas. So, there is much debate about these positions, so we won't cover all the possible objections here, but let's take a look at some of the major ones. First, one might object to the moral premise of both feminism and masculinism by claiming that men and women should not be equal. This might take the form of female or male supremacy, arguing that men or women are morally or intellectually superior to the other and therefore don't deserve equal treatment. Positions that have been held by some extreme modern political feminists and many patriarchal cultures throughout time. An extreme virilist, on the other hand, might claim that we should be in a society that is more masculine than feminism, that a masculine society is simply better. While an extreme feminist might argue that masculinity is actively harming society through excessive wars, violence, etc. On the other hand, mainstream masculinists and feminists might respond to such arguments who accept that moral premise with arguments from classical liberalism about the importance of equality under the law, freedom of thought and expression, the lack of rights for particular ideologies like being masculine or being feminism, as opposed to the rights of the individual, etc. Others might object to the empirical claim, arguing that men have categorical privilege. Check out our video on hypothetical and categorical privilege for more. They are better off in all areas of society and the law than women. However, this will be challenging to prove, as the masculinist might respond with evidence that men are less likely to get custody of children. They receive higher prison sentences for the same crime as women. They are legally required to register for the draft in many countries when women are not. They are over 10 times more likely to be killed or injured on a job, etc. A more nuanced objection might be to say that women face more discrimination than men do, or that men are the cause of both discrimination against women and men, though it doesn't seem that either of those is a resolution to the ethical mandate to address that discrimination. Simply because there are some men that are discriminating against other men due to their gender doesn't seem to make that discrimination right, nor does the fact that some people are suffering more mean that we shouldn't try to eliminate all suffering. Further, one might object to the specific political positions. One might object to the progressive position, either from the traditional masculinist perspective, arguing that particular gender roles are beneficial for society, or from the feminist perspective, arguing that empirically men have more power than women. One might be concerned with the traditionalist position, based on classical ideas of freedom and autonomy, that a person should have the right to choose what they do with their life, regardless of their gender. In terms of the virilist position, one might object that society was over-masculinized to begin with, and feminism has merely brought it back into balance. Or one might claim that masculinity is not inherently a good thing, not saying that men are not inherently a good thing, but rather that the values of masculinity are potentially harmful, that it's in some ways toxic or harmful, and a society with less does not diminish men, just harmful cultural pressures that historically have been associated with men. Check out our video on toxic masculinity for more questions around this argument. As a brief aside, it's interesting to see how some feminists focus on how women are unequal in traditionally masculine spheres, in wages, in work, in leadership roles, etc., contributing to the further valorization of masculine values, while those same feminists often, though not always, dismiss male concerns about being equal in traditionally feminine spheres, in child custody, in paternity leave, etc., and therefore in some ways diminish those feminized concerns. This means that those feminists are actually contributing to the valorization of masculinity as a concept in society and the devalorization of feminine ideologies or feminization in society. Contrary to the virilist narrative, it seems that some types of feminism are adding to the masculinization of society by hyper-focusing on traditional masculine values like making money and underappreciating feminine values like being a parent. Note that it is not all feminists, and many feminists are also progressive masculinists and care about not just making sure that women have the same rights as men in feminine spheres, but also that men have the same rights as women in masculine spheres, and vice versa. But those feminists that reject progressive masculinism do seem to fall into this category of contributing to some of the things that they are in fact critiquing. What do you think? Is there a version of masculinism that you would support? Is it aligned with feminism, or do you think it's in tension with it? Is feminism that rejects progressive masculinist concerns about equal rights to child rearing as less important than wage equality actually feeding into a culture that overvalues masculinity and undervalues femininity? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, like this video, share it, donate on Patreon, and stay skeptical, everybody.